we all know that the United Nations Framework Convention on International Tax Cooperation has started its pathway towards success. We began with Nigeria, tabling a resolution at the United Nations General Assembly saying that the entire international tax regime is asymmetrical, it's discriminatory, and it needs to go. The only way we can now reform this international financial architecture and the international tax governance architecture is by having a body that doesn't sit within the OECD, but that it is United Nations led. And they said, on the basis of that, we need to have a convention. So that started off the entire process about getting us to the journey that we are at today. So the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, developed a report, and he proposed 3 ways, right, on how to get the Nigerian proposal operationalized. What do we do? And out of the 3 proposals, the Framework Convention was adopted. Then we had the Ad Hoc Committee that came up with their terms of reference. The terms of reference were on the basis of what are the critical, salient, substantive issues that we need to discuss within international taxation. So it was that we need to have a substantive framework that will tell us how to resolve disputes. We need to have taxes that are going to be covered, and we need to understand which country gets to tax what and at what rate. So on the basis of that, they then said, there's so many issues that are critical to the continent: illicit financial flows, the taxation of wealth, climate change, sustainable development goals, and dispute resolution procedures. Which one takes priority? So the Ad Hoc Committee decided we will have the Framework Convention, and then we'll have 2 protocols. Protocol 1 would be on the taxation of cross-border services in the digitalized economy, and Protocol 2 would be basically dispute resolution. So that is what was accepted. And on the basis of that, the United Nations General Assembly passed that resolution with a majority of votes in favor, and then we had the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee, which is what we have now. And this INC basically is now beginning to draft the contours of what the Framework Convention is going to look like and what the content of the protocol is going to look like. So we started off the discussions in New York. The first session took place in New York in August. And we began the first session by discussing what should the Framework Convention look like. The second session was about what will Protocol 1 look like. And then the third session, which is going to take place in November this year in Nairobi, will now be presenting what this proposal is beginning to look like. So how is this Framework Convention looking like? What are the key salient features we are talking about? What is the content of Protocol 1 and Protocol 2? That's what we're going to be discussing. So we have to wait till November to be able to see what is this content going to look like. During the second session in New York, when they were discussing it, they were discussing the coverage of taxes. So it's cross-border taxes. What kind of cross-border taxes are we looking at? We're looking at management fees. We're looking at professional fees. Some of the countries were talking about imposing a VAT, which is like legally not correct when you're trying to think about international taxation. Other countries were talking about the importance of imposing taxation on the digital economy. So a lot of conversation was happening about that, right? So we have existing models in the OECD, Amount A, Pillar 1, rather. Can we adopt that? Or do we adopt the Indian approach of the equalization levy that exists? Or do we adopt the Kenyan approach of digital service taxes, which is the unilateral approach? So these are political discussions that are taking place. And of course, the Framework Convention is going to be a political decision more than a legal process. The legal process has to be embedded in mutuality, in inclusivity, in fairness of the entire process. But the content will be shaped by the political interests. And right now, the United States has pulled out. That's going to have a substantial fallback going forward. But the important thing about the UN is that the voting is by majority. And the majority is with the continent and other developing countries, so they would be able to push through the Framework Convention going forward as long as it is favorable. So we have to wait till November to see what we're having on the table, because then that is going to be the subject of proper discussion, so that when we go into 2026, we're beginning to now revise, edit, and come up with a convention that we're going to be happy with going forward. But let's wait and see. I reserve my comments till then.